All right, it's showtime. Hey, everybody. Happy snow day here in the Portland, Oregon metro area. I'm Jennifer Schurter, and this is another exciting episode of Real Estate Recess. And today I have the privilege of having Pete. Pete, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the people who you are and where you're from?
Hi, everybody. So I am Pete Leese, pronounced like Lease the House. And I am based in Boston, Massachusetts. I am a real estate advisor here in the greater Boston area and a Boston area native, Boston proud. And I am very happy to see you again, Jennifer, and have a good chat.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here today. We have some exciting topics that we wanted to cover today. So first of all, for those of you who are from outside of the state of Oregon, I just thought because it is a snow day, let's take a look for Oregon. Let's take a look at what the local news actually looks like for Oregon right now, because we generally aren't prepared for this type of thing. And so it's just kind of funny as a point in time to say, what's going on in Oregon with the snow and schools canceled and all that stuff, which is why I'm not in my usual studio setup right now. So we'll look at that just for a good laugh. And Pete, being from Boston, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. Want to talk also about the Portland, Oregon metro real estate market. The market action report for Portland came out, well, the Portland metro came out last week, and wanted to break down what's going on now that the year is officially kicked off. We can look at the data from January and discuss what's going on there. And Pete, would love to hear what things are like in your neck of the woods too, and how it compares, what the differences are. It's always fascinating because coast to coast, literally between Boston and Portland, it's fascinating to know that.
Absolutely.
And then we have an interesting article from an industry publication called Housing Wire, talking about home seller growth. So we will bring that to you also. So for anybody this year that's thinking about selling their home, or even for people who are buying, who are paying attention to information and data, this could be a little bit of an interesting piece of information to add to your stack of details as you do your research for the year. So what do you think? Shall we?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to understand the data, whether you're a buyer or a seller of your micro market you're looking in, or the whole region, or even bigger trends, and what are the macro forces at work. So I think that's important.
Totally right. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so let's have a little bit of snow day fun. Let's look at the local news. This is one of our local news channels. It's Fox 12 Oregon. And it's just kind of interesting because if you watch the live news report, we always would laugh about this. The news reporters always go to a handful of places. And coming from a world where I worked in broadcast media for 12 years, it was always a joke of they set up in Portland at just a couple places, the Sylvan Hill on Highway 26, and then usually they're somewhere in downtown and they're interviewing people about how the snow's affecting them. It's always really funny. But we just aren't, for those who might be looking to move to Oregon from out of state, the Willamette Valley here where I'm at, we don't get a ton of snow. We might get a day or two kind of like this where the snow sticks. We're not really prepared for it all that well, but it's kind of fun when it does happen. The kids get a day off from school. But for like an inch or two of snow, airport is experiencing flight delays and cancellations. So what does it take in Boston, Pete, for this type of thing to actually happen where you're at?
Yep. Well, no school in Boston has ever canceled for a snow day ever in the history. No, just kidding. It certainly takes more than in other places because, all the school systems are well prepared for, we have little plows that go down the sidewalks and in certain places. And the attitude basically is, I think is a little bit more like, we're going to go in and let's not try to add on a day in June if we can avoid it. That said, we did have one snow day just so far this year, and the school superintendent made the, I think, wise decision to cancel because it was just going to be a mess right around when everybody was getting let out of school. So, but yeah, it's probably a little bit different. And speaking of, snow and the real estate market, we definitely are seeing, people are still kind of hibernating and thinking winter. But for those of us in the profession, it already feels like spring. It feels like homes are being prepared, buyers are starting to come out again, and I think we're going to have a very brisk spring market, even though it doesn't look like it outside with the snow.
Yeah, and that's very interesting, because you know what they say, the spring real estate market, when things heat up, the saying is, well, once the Super Bowl hits, it might as well be spring in the real estate world. And to some degree, in various parts of the country, they really start to see that spring market ramp up. And to some degree, I agree with that. That's been my experience as well, that even if we're still getting days like this where it's looking still very much like winter, the Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, or he sees his shadow, right? That means we have 6 more weeks. Yeah. So I think he saw his shadow. So we still have some time. But absolutely.
Here's something I would add. So when after we had kids and moved to a more kid and school oriented town out of I would start to think about something like a summer camp or signups or those sorts of things way later than was appropriate. I'd be like, oh, it's springtime. We should think about some spring and summer activities. And the folks that have been in town for a while are like, oh, you are way late. You have missed the boat on that.
Totally.
And of course, I've caught up and figured that out. But I think the same applies when I'm talking to both buyers and sellers, particularly sellers in this moment. Now is the time to prepare your home for spring. It takes a little while to do the cleanup and clean out and maybe get a contractor in to paint and whatever. So really, February 13th today is the time to get that prep going. We expect a brisk spring market in just climbing from here. So you can't wake up on May 13th and be like, oh, I think it's time to list my home in the spring market. Yep, we can do it. We can be fast and we can do it. But a well-prepared home will be better in the market. Do you find that as well?
Oh, 100%. I think that's just a common rule, no matter where you're at, that if you take the steps and you make the preparation actually count, and not just for the best end result you can get when you actually list it, but for your own sanity, because that's an important thing to preserve through this process, because selling a house is already stressful, or it can be stressful. And a lot of the sellers I've worked with, they feel a lot of pressure, and it's our job to take that off their plate, to make it as easy on them as possible, of course. But even still, it's a big transaction. And the more you can do to just take the time to do it right and not add extra stress to yourself, that is also helpful. It just makes your life easier. And we want that. We want that for you. So starting earlier than later is absolutely, I think, ground rule number 1 when you're getting ready to list your house.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you do to prepare the home does make a difference. We can, there are a couple of variables. The pricing variable is somewhat dependent on the market. It's somewhat dependent on the timing, down to, the week that we go live. But it's also in how you prepare the home and what you do. Yes, we can put your home on, next week sort of as is, but you may find that a good amount of, maybe cleanup and decluttering and staging even could fetch far more in the market.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And those little pieces matter. And I tell people all the time as we're getting their property ready, and they say, well, do I really need to touch up the paint in this room? And I would absolutely say yes, 100%. If you have the time and the ability to do it, it is low cost and high end result, because the beat up paint, even if it isn't that big of a deal and paint's easy to change, every little thing, you just never know what a buyer's going to actually be scrutinizing.
Right.
And every little thing has a dollar sign attached to it, whether it's time or money. There's that attachment. And a buyer is going through making that checklist in their head. They're like, oh, I got to do this and I want to do that. And I don't feel like doing that. I don't have time. I just want turnkey. So every little objection you can take away, absolutely do the work to try to remove as many of those as you can.
Yeah. And there's also a bigger multiplier. So as a homeowner, I might say like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of chipping on there. I might I should get around to that someday. But a buyer comes in and will say, oh, there's some paint chipping. We have to paint every single room inside and out. And boy, that's going to be, 4 times the amount that the seller might think it would cost to do. So you said the word objections, and I think that's right. Remove the objections. I was just meeting with a homeowner yesterday, and oh yeah, that old stain, that was from this other thing long ago that we had long ago fixed. Well, you still have the stain, so people think that there's a leaky roof when in fact it's not the case. Take care of it. That's my advice on that.
Absolutely. That's great. So anyway, folks, the bottom line is it might be snowing, but spring is coming. Spring is coming. So start making your plans and preparations earlier than you might imagine. So then let's move on to, Pete, forgot, you mentioned that tell your wife, she does something. And I'm sure you have some interesting tips to add to this before we move on. I don't want to forget about this detail.
Sure.
Your wife has a staging business. And so tell us about, I mean, obviously I know the answer to this, but from your point of view and your wife's point of view, having the staging background, how does that play into this whole equation of getting your house ready, regardless of the season? This isn't a seasonal component, it's anytime. But yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already alluded to preparing the home for market is always going to pay off, unless of course you have other constraints of time and a situation that. But if you can clean up and stage the home, that is well worth it. I mean, some homes are already, maybe have been custom designed and decorated and don't need it. But even a vacant home where there's nothing, staging definitely is worth it. It doesn't cost, it pays. That's one of our company sayings. And for homeowners, we're so used to seeing our own things around us. But what we're trying to do when we've decided to sell the home is make it more of a blank slate for the next buyer to see themselves there. And we as humans are naturally visually attract to whatever objects are in a room. And if it's full of clutter and files and your elephant collection or whatever it is, that's what people will see, and they'll forget, is it a bedroom? Is it an office? Was there, can you even fit a queen bed in there?
Yes.
I felt like I was visiting their house. I couldn't see myself in it. And you want to remove all that. Again, you mentioned the word barriers, and a well-prepared home, cleaned up, staged, whether it be, here in Boston, we have a lot of older housing stock than on average in Portland, Oregon, whether it be a colonial farmhouse or mid-century modern or 100-year-old or 150-year-old Victorian, Queen Anne Victorian or whatever. Each one is worth doing the cleanup and the staging too. It definitely pays off.
100%, especially I imagine in some of those older, and we have older homes, but Boston's definitely older in terms of the historic nature of the properties you have, and over the course of history, the size of rooms are so different. And so you see some of these houses, and I'm sure that it's like, well, what do I do in this room? I like the house.
Can you fit a queen bed in there? Yeah, well, yes, you can. Here it is.
Right. 100%. So that's absolutely valuable. So that's really great. So I'm sure that that's been a great conversation for you to have with your clients when you're meeting with them to talk about listing and being able to come from that level of expertise. And I think staging is valuable. And I often tell clients, we may not be able to have professionals, but again, we'll walk through and we will do a massive just decluttering and depersonalization, because those are the types of things that, you could leave your family pictures up. It might make your house feel naked and kind of void of personality. But the thing is, there's a couple things about that I tell people. It's like, you don't want people coming into your house to know anything about you that could be used against you in a negotiation, or like to like manipulate situations. Like, take that power away from them. It should come down to brass tacks. Like, is this a good offer based on price? Are the terms good? Or we're not getting entangled in these emotions somehow through this negotiation, right? We don't need them to know more than we need them to know about you as the seller. And then also, the decluttering, the depersonalization, we want people to see themselves in your house. So when they see your family portraits, they may be like, cute family, but like,
that's me.
This, like, I don't like that picture frame. I mean, that's trivial. That sounds silly, but it's like, we all love the precious moment statues, but we need to pack them up. They need to go because you're going to move anyway. So it's just clean it up. You won't have to dust them. You won't have to mess with them, but let's get them packed up.
Yep. And another thing we tell folks is, if you're preparing to prepare your home and you're going to be leaving it anyway, yes, it's true. You could leave your corner baseball card collection on the wall and on the shelves, but you're going to be moving it anyway, and you care about it anyway. So let's move it out early so you can see actually the size and the space in the room. So it's the you're going to be moving. So let's do it best so that, as you said, that the buyer can kind of see themselves in the space. So, and I guess this is true regardless of what coast you're on, regardless of what side of Route 20 you're on. Which Route 20, as I'm sure you know, goes all the way from Boston to the Oregon coast. So it's
that's right. It's the
longest in the country.
You're right. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it starts right where the Red Sox play, Kenmore Square, and it runs all the way to, I think it's Newport, Oregon on the coast.
You're right.
But
good pull, Pete. That's great. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
So hop on the road and I'll meet you halfway somewhere.
That's awesome. Halfway. Like, where would that be? Nebraska, Missouri? I don't know.
I do have a market question for you. So I was seeing that in Portland that the some of the statistics and the of time of houses on market is different from Boston, and average price point. Boston, we don't call it Metro, but we'll just, for this conversation, call it Boston Metro versus Portland Metro. Like, what's kind of happening right now?
Yeah, which great question, because we want to talk about the market action report, which I alluded to earlier. So let me share my screen and we will, let's try this. We're going to go share screen. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so here
I know I visited Portland a few times, so I can picture the Portland Metro, and I know you've got a great downtown, but I imagine that it's a lot going on right now for you in the Portland Metro area.
Of course. So this report that we're seeing on the screen right now, so for those who are watching, this is encompassing the Portland, Oregon Metro region. And so this is a 5-county area. So on the screen, we've got this little Portland map here, or this Oregon map that shows the orange counties. That is the counties that are included in this data. So it's Columbia, Washington, Yamhill, Clackamas, and Multnomah counties are the 5 that are counted. So usually when I review these with folks, so those who are watching, obviously this is a very lengthy report. Send me a message if you want a copy of this. I'd be happy to get a copy over to you. Or drop me a comment and we can connect further from here. There's usually just a couple things for the consumer side. So for those of you watching, that I would generally point out in this case. And so over here on the right, we have this inventory in months. And so as you can see, it's this little box over here showing what's happened over the last couple of years. And right now in 2025 for January, we're at 3.7 months of inventory. So what that means is it would take 3.7 months to sell every single house on the market, assuming there was nothing else coming to the market or available to purchase. That went up from December, about a month worth of inventory, from 2.7. So what we have there is, that's not unusual. I mean, the holidays, right, Pete? It's like the holidays happen. We have things people aren't as active.
Are
Not as
focused elsewhere. Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
definitely I think you all have a similar kind of cyclical calendar wave as we do. Seasonality
Mhm.
by weather, seasonality by school year a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%. I would say
Yeah.
the last few years, the seasonality of our business has been about March until October, with a little bit here and there through the late fall and winter months. But definitely when the weather starts to get nice and people start to think about the following school year, if they have a family to relocate, then yeah, absolutely. So then, so that's that. Also, and maybe you're familiar with this rule too, that we say in the real estate world, it's a seller's market if we have less than 6 months of inventory. We've been in a seller's market in Oregon or in the Portland metro region for several years. So this only shows back to 2023, but the data, if you go back, it's been a seller's market for many years. We just haven't caught up in inventory. There's still a shortage of homes. And last week, I talked about the Oregon Department of Economic Analysis released their report that says Oregon needs to build about 30,000 homes a year for the next 20 years to fill the gap. So that's pretty significant.
Yeah, that's a huge number. We have essentially a housing shortage as well, and we're seeing towns and the state rezoning and making some changes to try and bring some of that density. Of course, some people don't necessarily like that, but there's an interesting radical change in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Not the first time that radical and Cambridge have been in a sentence together.
Yeah.
They just eliminated, or they're going to phase in, eliminating dedicated single-family home zoning. So that's a big difference, and that is an attempt to respond to these sorts of numbers. And you talked about months supply of inventory. I'm just glancing at my other screen for the Boston area, statewide by county. We're seeing things like no more in any county in Massachusetts, no more than 5 months of inventory, but mostly it's like 3, 2, and even 1, or even under 1. So in one of the counties that I operate most frequently, it was for 2024 was 0.8, meaning less than 1 month of inventory. Say 3.5 weeks, all the houses will be sold if none other came to the market. So it's really still quite a seller's market here. There's a lot of buyer demand, and so that's one, I think, a little difference that we see here.
Yeah.
What else are you seeing there?
Yeah, so some interesting trends. So again, there's tons of data in here. We could go deep and we could talk about this for hours because there's a lot of information. These residential trends on the right, if we compare month over month, obviously we can see new listings are up 106.5%. Pending sales, so sales that have gone, houses have gone under contract, are up about 30%, but our closings are down about 21%. But I think that the fact that we see all these green arrows, that there's, with the exception of the total market time going up, I mean, for the most part, there's some interesting movement in the fact that we have more choices for buyers. There's activity actually happening. But the other part that's interesting is amidst the inventory going up, amidst the time on market going up, we're still seeing average and median price still continuing to also go up. And that really points back to the fact that there's still not a lot of inventory to buy. So supply and demand, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing that, that tug all the time here as well. But as I was just saying, it's much stronger seller's market. In the town in which I live, there are so few starter homes left. That was air quotes, because the starter homes are $1 million. And I know of 2 examples in the last 1 week where homes that really need a lot of work, like maybe gutted, went over asking without contingencies, and 10 and 11 offers in the 2 cases.
Wow.
So the demand is high, and so I don't know when I'm working with buyers and wondering what you advise yours right now, how do you advise buyers to operate in that no, maybe not in my environment, but in your environment? What are you advising them here in this point of the year?
So it's still like, I'm still blown away to hear that you're seeing 10, 11, 12 offers per property. And not to say that does not happen here, because I'm sure it does. It hasn't been in the world where I'm operating. I haven't seen that as much, but we might see a couple, 2 to 3 has been my experience in the past year, at least the area of focus that I spend the most of my time in. But gosh, in those cases, it's, I just say, well, here's your options. We know that it's a competitive situation, and how can we put your best foot forward? It's often going to come down to price and terms. Can we win on price, even if it's by $1? Can we win on terms by doing things that improve our offer without adding more money? At the end of the day, most sellers are looking for the bottom line. What's going to be the most fruitful for them?
So in Portland, sorry to cut you off there, but in Portland, given you have a little bit more inventory, are you having situations where buyers can actually kind of choose between 123 Main Street and 456 Oak Street, and be a little bit more in a power position? Or is it still, it's not a balanced market, it's still a seller's market, as you noted? So what are you kind of seeing on the ground there?
Yeah, it's more balance. In a lot of cases, buyers still have some time to think about, like maybe take a couple days to sleep on it. Again, not always. I'm still trying to do my due diligence for the clients and say, stay in touch with the agent if it's something they're interested in, trying to develop rapport and have them communicate back to me to say, hey, we've got another interested party, we've got offers, are your clients going to submit, and just have that open line of communication. But I would say that by and large, it's not like 2021 or 22 for us, where it was like, if you don't make a decision the moment you leave the property, you're not going to get it, because there's
I'm
already
just going to the car to get my suitcase of gold bullion, and I'll be right back.
Right.
But I should clarify the examples I gave where is a subsection of the market. It's a sort of the starter home in this popular suburb. That is not true as you go all the way up the luxury market. If you're shopping in the $3 to $5 million range, there is more inventory to choose from. You can, as you just described, take some time. And then in a different market still, condominiums in the city, depending on where you're looking, can, I on the buyer side just got an under asking deal done for my client. So it really depends on your market segment, and I'm sure that you advise your clients to be, to really understand what segment that they're in, and
absolutely,
and behave for that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's nice, so buyers and sellers here need to be aware of this, that right now with the interest rate equation and how inflated the cost of living situation has become over the last couple of years, housing is expensive. The things that hit your pocketbook every day have gotten more expensive: gas, groceries, your electric bill here. Portland General Electric has raised electric rates dramatically over the last year. So people are really feeling that. So in the home buying equation, sellers should be aware that buyers are asking for some help on closing costs, because they're going to buy down their rate, or they're going to preserve their cash so they're in a better financial situation once they buy the house, or any number of things. So sellers in my market, I always advise them to be prepared that people may come and ask for those things, and to negotiate for them, because that's going to help them feel more confident in buying your house. And buyers should know that absolutely, we're in a position and in a market right now that's more balanced, where you can ask for those things. You can negotiate for repairs and closing costs. And that's pretty commonplace, I would say.
I like your approach there, a collaborative approach. And in the end, if you have an interested buyer and an interested seller, we're trying to bring them together to get the handshake happening. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like one party's going to win, the other's going to lose. It's about finding that balance of, pulling all the levers to bring
Yes.
it all together. So I appreciate how you're kind of approaching it, and it makes for a much more sane process for all those
Totally.
involved.
Totally. So all that to say, that is the basic rundown of what's happening in the Portland metro region. So again, if you want a copy of this Portland Metro Market Action Report, drop us a comment, send me a message, and I'll make sure to connect with you and get this information to you if you want to track. But what I am curious is, what do you think is going to happen in the Portland metro real estate market in 2025? What is your prediction? Are we going to see more inventory? Are we going to see prices go down? The popular headline people have been talking about for years and years is the market's going to crash. I'm waiting for the market to crash. So, I mean, by that measure, I've been waiting a long time. So let me know your thoughts, and would love to see what you have to say about that. So leave us a comment.
Yeah, I'd love to see in the comments if folks are feeling at the very local level, on my street, in my neighborhood, a sense of, kind of like what is the feeling of potential selling and buying a home in the context of some of these,
Mhm.
some of the environmental things you were talking about, from the inflation or the rates. If there's an old saying, when's the best time to buy a house? And the answer is 5 years ago.
Totally. I love that saying.
And that's not just because we're in real estate that we like it. It's just like, carpe
Mhm.
diem. You don't know what the economic world's going to be like, but I'm curious to know from your viewers in the comments, what are some of the things that they're seeing kind of at a local level, and what does it feel like, really?
Totally. Yes, leave us your comments. We'd love to know what you're seeing. I mean, because real estate's hyper local, and I mean, I don't have exact market knowledge of every neighborhood in Portland. So if you're in North Portland, for instance, would love to know what you're seeing, because I'm in Clackamas County, and would love to know what the difference is. We're not far away geographically, but sometimes it's micro markets, like you said, Pete, that
Mhm.
different enough demand circumstances drive certain areas differently. And this market action report is it's more like a 10,000 foot view that's giving you it's 5 counties. So it's an average of all of it. It's not
Right.
just one area. So another good point is, if you have a certain area in mind that you're curious about, we can also drill into that. So that would be good. Okay. So our next topic, if we want to get into it here, is an interesting article that I came across on a industry publication called Housing Wire. And it's just an interesting topic, because a lot of people are, to go back to the last topic, they're waiting for the market to crash. And is that going to happen? My opinion, and the best data we have available, is that no, it's not going to crash, at least not in the fashion that it did in 2008. Different circumstances, different market, like it's just not the same situation. So, but what's interesting is, what will we see? I think prices are high. 100%. I think we're looking at a market where prices are high. It's out of reach for a large number of consumers. And Pete, of course, as you know, we've got the lock-in effect, which is,
Yes, we do.
I have a 2.5% mortgage. My house doesn't work, but I can't afford to leave this financial picture that we're in, because we have 3 kids now and in a 2-bedroom condo. Like, what are we going to do? We have a
Right.
2.5% interest rate. So something has to give somewhere, but does that mean a market crash? So anyway, this Housing Wire article, I think, is quite interesting. But anyway, what are your,
Yeah, so you
before
mentioned like the lock-in effect. I think we felt that really acutely when the rates jumped up a year ago, and my sense is that sentiment is normalized. Like, I don't think anyone is at this point thinking, I'm just going to wait for 3% to come back. And we are also seeing some loosening of the lock-in effect, I'd say, a little bit, as life moves on, circumstances change. And the example you gave, the folks are really needing a move-up house and some more space, and maybe you're willing to change geographies a little bit to do it. Or we're seeing a lot of boomers who are ready to downsize or move full time to their second home or whatever. And so I think we're seeing some of that loosening, and circumstances happen where folks need to make a transition. The other thing I see is maybe you see this too, is some folks who are maybe older, our elders, have been in their homes for a long time. Maybe it was a family home that was really great for the family of 20, 30, 10 years ago. And I feel like sometimes there's another lock-in effect, which is like, I don't know, the house is not good for me anymore, but what do I do about that? And I'm sure you advise folks to, what can they do about it? And they can get unlocked in certain ways, and whether it be financially tapping into equity to help as a stepping stone to the next place, or there's all kinds of things that we can do. But are you kind of seeing that people are stuck in their homes, and maybe that's too strong of a word, maybe it's needing to realign their home environment to the new version of them? Maybe that's a better way to say it. Are you seeing some of that?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of desire for realignment. I mean, I think my family is a perfect example. We have a low interest rate. We like our house. It mostly works, but we have a lot of hobbies that require, like, we do a lot of outdoorsy sportsman stuff. So camping and all the gear that comes with it for like backpacking or car camping, or like deep, like going out into the outback with, like, you feel like you're building a house, but it's like, so we have all of that, and then we have a 2-car garage. And so it's, and a desire for a little bit bigger yard for the kids and the dogs and a garden. So it's like, we would love to get just out of town into some acreage. The jump for us to go from what we have now to that is like more than doubling our mortgage payment on the house we're in. So it's like, our house is fine. Is it perfect? No, but the desire to, like you say, right size for our needs, or shift to something that we feel like is more of our more longer term play. It's just a tough thing. So there's a desire for it, and a lot of people I talk to are in the same boat. But it's just, to justify it is difficult. And so that's what I think, maybe this article, if we go through it, might allude to some of that, of in order for things to normalize, we have to see probably some loss of momentum or some softening on actual sale prices of properties. So if we take a look at this, then this is all also, for those watching, this is national data. So this isn't local to a particular market. This is looking at the big picture of the United States in general. But they're saying that the leading indicator of price reductions is more bearish for home prices. So, which is interesting. Let's scroll down here.
Yeah, so that purple chart, as like scary as it looks like stalactites and stalagmites, is talking about the seller volume compared to the year prior. So any given data point, like on the far left, is January 1, 2022, is saying that there was 20% more stock, housing stock available at that moment than there was 1 year prior to that. And so so this is trying to show on the far right side that maybe there is some more seller volume coming on, although it's fewer nationally than less growth than I think was kind of expected, and it kind of alludes to some of that the lock-in effect he talked about.
Yeah. So and then this is just, I think, a good representation to show what we're coming from, because if you look at 2022 and 2023, and what this is saying, that above that line means more sellers and below means fewer. So 24 and as we're going into 25, hopefully we'll continue to see more sellers, because more inventory means more choices. And if we have more inventory and more things for buyers to choose from, it could help normalize some of those prices. I know sellers, we want to get you top dollar. We want to maximize. But at the same time, we also want buyers to feel like they can buy houses. So it's this interesting balance that we have to find in the market of, you need a buyer to buy the house. And so we need the price and we need the conditions to be right for those buyers to come to the market.
Yeah, and I think some sellers don't necessarily, or future sellers don't necessarily think of themselves as sellers just yet. But if they had the opportunity to learn some of what you're sharing here and your local, market knowledge, I think folks could see that that they might get unlocked in multiple ways if they do consider selling. And yeah, it can be a complicated process, but that's why you have a professional,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the home seller doesn't have to figure out all the things they need to do to sell the home.
Yeah,
Start with us, and we'll help them through the process. But I think that
totally.
enables an unlocking that would then they may find that they can benefit financially and lifestyle wise far more than they might otherwise know, just by being at home and watching whatever national news channel they're watching.
Right. 100%. So if we scroll down, sorry. We're doing it live. Hopefully that's back. You would laugh at the setup. I normally have like a tripod. I had to do this thing because of the snow day where it's cardboard boxes and
There you
like
go.
set up just so, and the dog bumps the table. And so then
Well, that's kind of a good analogy. I don't think most people probably think, I mean, I shouldn't say most people. Real estate is far more than just like putting a sign in the ground and taking a picture at the sign. Like there is just so much behind the scenes stuff that we do that I think folks aren't necessarily aware of. I mean, we all do behind the scene, whatever our jobs are, we're doing stuff that people don't see. But I think real estate agents might have a few more jury rig cardboard boxes and
my gosh.
And tools in the trunk,
good.
and
the show must go on.
Yeah.
So back to this topic here. And so let's see what else we have here. Some points, like obviously that graph shows in the post-pandemic era, which we're still in, we're about to hit the 5-year anniversary of COVID, of when all the lockdowns happened and the effects of that in the economy and the world. It feels like, I can't believe it's been 5 years, like it's gone fast, but I also feel like what happened to the last 5 years, it's kind of a weird vortex of time. But this era that we're in, marking that post-pandemic era, is still one where we have very few sellers. Like obviously we're talking about that exact thing, the locked-in effect, ultra cheap rates, people who want to hang on to that. And you made a good point about, like, if you start with an agent and you're concerned about, well, I have this house with a 2.25%, 2.5%, 3%, anything under 5 right now, I would consider that to be a good rate in today's world. There's choices, there's loans where if you want to keep your house as a rental and that's a good fit, it could work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps your payment and what you could rent the house for could be a good upside. Talk to a lender and see, because sometimes you can use, I want to say it's 70 or 75%. But don't quote me on that. Talk to a lender, because I'm not a lender. But there's loan programs out there, if you qualify, that you can use that 70 to 75%, whatever the number is, to qualify to your next mortgage. So that could be an option. And then you have a built-in second asset for your home and for your net worth portfolio. So it doesn't always mean you have to sell, but then if you need to sell in order to buy because you need the cash.
And just to clarify that 70 or 75%, it's kind of awesome that you just mentioned that, because that is a lesser known thing. But what it means is, let's even say you're going to buy a home that's like a 3-family, and you're going to live in one of them and you're going to rent out the other 2. You may not, on your own numbers, like salary, W-2, whatever, qualify for that whole house. But if you have renters, the banks will count whatever percent it is. I think it is around 75%. Towards your credit worthiness, and then it might enable you buying a multifamily home right off the bat. So it's a pro house hack.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that our family has considered. for the right property, if that is going to make more sense for us, because we have a low rate and that's hard. It's just it's a hard decision to make, especially when you feel comfortable with your payment.
Right. And another version of it is to use the equity that you built up in your house and take it out and use it to purchase your next home, whether it's, as a stepping stone, so you don't have to sell and get out and jump. You may be able to buy, settle into, and then sell afterwards, so there's a way to kind of use the equity from one, leverage into the other. If you had your home for a long time, and that way you don't necessarily have to give up that rate, or not right away. So that's something else that I've done for folks, and there's a lot of different ways that are below just the headline articles about market stuck. Oh, I guess I should never buy or sell. Well, there's more for them.
Exactly. And that's just it, is that if it's something that you're curious about, strategizing with an agent that can actually strategize, that's going to sit and say, well, tell me about your aspirations, your goals, your needs. Where are you at with your current place? What do you owe? Mm-hmm. What's your mortgage rate? Like, there's several different paths we can take. It's just finding one that's going to be the right fit for an individual buyer situation or individual seller situation. There's no one exact path. It is a maybe these books, it's a choose your own adventure novel, right? We can go to page 15 or we can go to page 30. It just depends on where we're trying to go and where we're trying to end up.
Right. And if you're out there and you already have a real estate agent, include them in your choose your adventure, because the more that your agent understands your context and your own strategies and desires and wishes, like you just said, the far better off you can work together as a partnership to get to where you're going. So
100%.
Articles like this, I would say it's great to know, see the data, see the macro trends, but then try to interpret it to understand how does that apply to you locally, and not necessarily say like, oh, the national trend equals my situation.
Right. 100%. So there's a lot of information in this article. Again, if you'd like a copy of this or any of the information we've talked about today, please just leave us a comment, send me a message, make sure that you can review this information. There's a lot in here, again, that we could talk about, but we're going to hit a time wall here and come up on an hour. So let's put that one to bed. Sure. The only other thing I would add to that is there's a lot of talk, and I would blame our industry a little bit for this, where I'm hearing, people are saying, we've heard that rates are going to go to 5. I don't know who's saying that, and I don't know why. So let me be the first to tell you, nobody knows what's going to happen with interest rates. Would we like to see that happen? 100%. We want to see rates come down, but there's no guarantee. There's nothing in writing or in a plan that's saying that by this date, rates will have a 5 in front of them. I think, to make a conservative projection, I think we'd be lucky if we saw 6.5 and we were stable there. I think that would be a pretty good win, considering we're kind of, the national average on Mortgage News Daily is like, 7%, 7-ish. So if we can get to 6.5, that's going to be a lot of relief for people. That 0.5% can make a big difference. But I would say don't bet on anything in particular actually happening. If you were ready to make a move and willing to start looking at that, see what it's going to be like for you today, and work with that, but waiting for a certain thing to happen that we don't have any, don't lose time on the market. Don't lose time building net worth to wait for an interest rate change. It's better to have time in the market than to time it perfectly.
Well said. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I, one of my personal news sources is Marketplace, which I enjoy listening to understand how the macro trends, when you hear like, oh, the Fed's going to cut the rate, what does that actually mean? How is that related to interest rates and the other, forces that are out there? But that's macroeconomics. It's still local. You still have to do what's right for you and your family.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Pete, this is great. I'm so glad that you were able to join in today and add the Boston color to the
Oh,
conversation.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. It's
So-
wicked awesome to be on.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say like park the car or something.
Yeah. If anyone says park the car in Harvard Yard, I can tell you they're not from here.
So that's not real. That's not true.
But you can't park the car in Harvard Yard. It's all the pedestrians walking around. You'd be crazy to try and park there. There's only one day a year you can park there. It's when the students are coming in.
Yeah, that's right. You just made my day. That's just so great. I love all the nuances of our regions in the United States. We're such a big country, and the culture and the different, just all of it. I just love it. It's the best. It's the best thing. So thank you for taking the time to join me today. And how can the people find you if they're curious about the Boston area market? How can they connect with you?
Thank you for asking. I'm at Pete Leis, Peteleiis, on all the socials, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and my website, peteleiis.com. I am based in Boston area. I service Boston and the surrounding communities, and I am more than happy to help you figure it on out wherever you are.
That's fabulous.
And I appreciate your time, Jennifer. It's great to reconnect, and I learned a lot today.
Awesome, as did I. And for those who don't already know, I'm Jennifer Schurter. I am your South Portland metro suburbs, Clackamas County, and North Willamette Valley expert. I live here, I work here. It is my home and my heart. And if you're looking to make a move in this area, I hope you will look me up. You'll find my contact information here on my YouTube channel at Living in Portland Suburbs. And otherwise, I'll be back next week, same time, Thursday at noon Pacific. We'll see you then, and have a great week and a great snow day. Go make a snow angel. See you, everyone.